evening, everyone. My name is Josh Ooka. I'm a fourth year physiological science major at UCLA and the co-president of the Brew and Beans Health Club, or BBHC as we like to call it. I joined BBHC because of my interest to advance outreach for vulnerable populations and found the Core Kidney program and their amazing work in kidney awareness and advocacy. I plan to take the lessons I've learned as a member of BBHC as a future healthcare provider.
Alrighty, hi everyone. Happy World Kidney Day. My name is Jordan Ziegler and I'm a fourth year neuroscience major at UCLA with plans to apply to medical school. I was drawn to BBHC and the core kidney values of clinical excellence, outreach, research, and education, because I really believe this is where healthcare and the future of healthcare should be going. And I plan to apply the values of core kidney in my own clinical practice. So if Josh, you can introduce the mission statement of the Brew and Beans Health Club.
The Brew and Beans Health Club was founded in 2016 to foster the future leaders of healthcare through exposure to the medical field and learning by example from Dr. Rastogi and Dr. Sakar on really what it means to be an excellent medical provider. We really strive to provide opportunities for students with a mission to really bridge the gap of misinformation surrounding kidney health. The Brew and Beans, along with the Circle of Core, work together to support the Core Kidney Program's mission of making patients their own best advocates through the core values of clinical excellence, outreach, research, and education.
So in addition to increasing awareness of kidney health within our own group, we work to increase awareness of kidney health through social media. Look out for our newsletter, our work on kidney disease and kidney donation, information for kidney patients, and just keeping everyone up to what's happening in the clinical research world. So with that, we would like to thank Dr. Rastogi and Christina for all of their mentorship and guidance. And we'd like to hand it over to Phillip Palmer for hosting the World Kidney Day event. Phillip Palmer is an AP7 Los Angeles News anchor and a kidney donor. So thank you so much, Phillip, for hosting the event today.
Well, thank you, Josh, and thank you, Jordan, for getting us started. I've already looked in the chat here, and we have hundreds of people from around the world here, and they're going to have questions about core kidney. They're going to have questions about what's going on. But with Josh and Jordan as part of this organization and going to be the doctors of the future, I think we're lucky. We're lucky that you guys are here, and we're lucky that everybody is with us. So thank you guys for being here. I think of core kidney and the circle of core, and it always strikes me as when you think of a circle, and I think of all of the people that we have here, we are completing a circle, but the patient is at the center of that circle, and we're all here for you, the patient. We have a wonderful panel that's going to be here today. We have wonderful guests. We want to start it off with a very special speaker for us today, and it's Dr. Suzanne Nicholas. And Dr. Nicholas is with her. She's with us today. She's going to be here briefly, but she is a tenured professor of medicine and clinical hypertension specialist in the Division of Nephrology and chairs the Nephrology, Racial, and Health Equity Committee. She has been so generous with her time for so many times with us, and we want to thank and welcome Dr. Nicholas today.
Thank you, Phillip. And it's such a wonderful pleasure for me to be here again this year to address this audience and to welcome everyone to the 2023 celebration of World Kidney Day. You know, it's been 17 years now. The second Thursday of March every year that around the world, it is specifically dedicated to recognizing the important role of the kidneys, the importance of reducing the frequency, as well as the impact of kidney disease. And as you know, the kidneys function to do a number of different things. They remove waste from the body, they balance fluids and electrolytes, as well as acid-base status. They control your blood pressure, as well as hormones that are important in bone metabolism. But because the early stages of kidney disease are silent, it's really important for you to know your risk for developing chronic kidney disease. And some of those risks include a family history of kidney disease or kidney failure, a history of diabetes or hypertension, and if you belong to a racial or ethnic minority group, such as Black or African American, Native American, and Hispanic Latino individuals. Therefore, knowing your risk factor, if you belong to any of these risk groups, you really want to go ahead and get tested having a blood test and a urine test to determine your level of kidney function. I'm really happy to say that I and my colleagues here at UCLA have been successful in improving the reporting of values of kidney function that no longer include Black race as a factor. So the measure of kidney function that you get from your doctor here at UCLA is now more accurate for a measure of kidney function regardless of your race. In terms of disparities around kidney disease, Black and African American individuals are at a significant risk of developing kidney disease, even though they represent only 13% of the population within the United States. They actually represent 16% of all individuals with chronic kidney disease and up to 35% of individuals who have kidney failure. So they really represent a high-risk group that may need a little bit more attention in terms of screening, diagnosis, and management of kidney disease, as their kidney disease, once it is developed, can progress much faster. You know, the theme of World Kidney Day this year is kidney health for all, and the focus is on preparing for the unexpected and supporting the vulnerable. Even in normal and ordinary times, the 850 million individuals worldwide who are affected by kidney disease are considered to be vulnerable, as they may experience a number of different health challenges, such as the need for ongoing coordinated care, the need to see their physicians more frequently. Perhaps they need expensive medical management, medical therapies. And for many individuals, it may mean needing dialysis several times a week. So you can just imagine that in times of disaster, such as the COVID-19 pandemic that we're still enduring, that as well as other natural disasters, such as hurricanes and storms and floods, tornadoes, as well as earthquakes, it puts these individuals at an even more vulnerable position. And so it is very appropriate for us to take at least one day out of the year, this day in 2023, to raise awareness of kidney disease. I want to take this moment to thank all of you for all that you do to support each other, to reach out to others with kidney disease, and to advocate for kidney health, and especially for getting involved in this campaign on for World Kidney Day and in increasing awareness around kidney disease, and in providing your testimonials that touch so many lives. So with that, I'd like to thank you for all that you do, and I'd pass it back on to Phillip.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Nicholas, for being here. We just love the fact that you can come. And I think one of the things that you brought up was that there are so many people on this panel and here today who will be able to share individual personal stories about what they went through. And one of the things that I think is so special about Circle of Core is that we have doctors like you, and we have doctors like some of the folks I'm going to introduce, but we also have patients who've walked this walk, both on the donor and the kidney disease side. And we are going to hopefully answer as many questions as we can today for people who might have questions. So thank you for that guidance from the medical side. And let's kind of open this thing up. A lot of people who are on the panels have their cameras off, and I'm not going to let them keep their cameras off. They're going to have to turn it on, and they're going to have to participate. And we're going to try as we can to answer as many questions as are available. So I want to introduce one of my co-hosts today. Mark Cornell is here. So Mark, you have to unmute and you have to join. But when I talk about the people involved in CORE, I think Mark is a perfect example of what those people are. They are people who have walked a mile in your shoes. Mark is a kidney recipient. He's one of the lead ambassadors, if not the lead ambassador of UCLA Core Kidney Program. When I met Mark, he was very ill, and he was at the beach to be a part of a Core Kidney event. We didn't have it this time because of the rain, so we had to switch it around a little bit. But Mark, what brought you there that day? What did you learn from being around all of these people that you can share with some of our guests that are watching this? Because you have been such a wonderful ambassador even before you became a part of the core more officially, but you were there getting information from core when you were ill, before you became well.
Thank you, Philip. You know, one of the interesting things when I was going through dialysis was, how am I going to get an understanding of how to ask for a donor? And I remember meeting you and Brian, and I was just fascinated that I seen a donor, and it looked like, oh my God, they're up here, they're doing amazing things. Brian gave me a booklet. I remember it had him and his father with being at the LA Lakers game, and I was just in awe with everything that happened. Right. So at the time when we met, Philip, I was actually on dialysis. I don't know if you recall, and I was really asking. I was like, how do you feel? What? I was just asking you 21 questions about, what does a donor have to go through? What is a kidney recipient going to have to deal with? And that comes to the portion of the clinical excellence side, right? Is you were informed enough so that I can be informed to educate my donors so that they can understand the process, right? I mean, it came directly from me asking my donors if they would be able to donate. So it was just an amazing journey to go to the beach that day and see all the educational components that I didn't have access to prior to coming to the beach. You know, and then I met Dr. Rastogi, and I said, this is the place I need to be. And I promised myself that, go ahead, sorry.
Well, but I think you bring up the reason that we're here.
Right.
When you talk about, I can't imagine, you know, the hundreds of people who are with us today,
Right.
unless they're very special people, wanted to go out and research kidney disease before it impacted them. And I think that's what the Circle of Core is doing. I think that's what you as a lead ambassador are doing. And since you mentioned Brian, let's bring Brian in as well, because he was a kidney donor to his father, and he's turned around and just made Core Kidney something that has been a part of his life. And so for all of the people who are here, and it's not that Mark's not got more to say. We're going to come back to Mark. We're going to talk to Brian. We're going to talk to a lot of these panelists. But so many people didn't know anything about kidney disease until it hit them right square in the face. And Brian, I don't know, did you know a lot about kidney disease before your dad got sick, or did you kind of learn on the fly?
Well, I had no idea. Didn't know this world existed at all. So I just threw myself into it. And I kind of jokingly said when he was first getting sick, hey, you know, if you need a kidney, I'll give you a kidney. Just like that. You know, it's my dad. But I had no idea that this whole world existed until I had someone mentor me through the process. She had gone through the kidney donation and mentored me through it, and really just kind of opened my eyes up to everything. And I, you know, if my dad, you know, he needed a kidney, but if I knew this world existed before, or my dad never needed a kidney, I would be an altruistic donor. I really feel in my heart that this is something that I would do, because just opening my eyes up to this world, there's such a need out there, and there's such a you know, a thing to be filled, and it's you know, it's a way you can fill it just by saving someone's life with a simple thing. It's really not a simple thing, but it is kind of a simple thing. You and I have both been through it, but I did not know this world existed. And, you know, being part of Core, next to my family, this is the most important thing in my life. This is the most important thing. I am committed to it. I can't wait to retire from my job so I can actually put full time into this, because I'm so passionate about it and I care so much about it. I just feel like our group is growing and we're reaching so many people, and we're making a positive influence. And I couldn't be happier to be a part of this, but I'm grateful.
Well, Mark, you know, you brought something up. Brian talked about it a little bit, and you know, Brian, don't turn that camera off. We are bringing people back in and back out. That I've already scolded Mark for doing that. But I want people that are a part of this watching, whether they are currently ill or they're recovering or they know somebody. I mean, this is an informative. We are talking about World Kidney Day, and this is our chance to talk to people. And the both of you, I want to know what your experiences were. And Mark, I'm going to start with you, because you were worried about your donor before you met your donor. And I don't think that is unique. I think my recipient, Dale Davis, was worried about me. He didn't want to bring it up to people. He didn't want to talk about it. He wanted to try to rub some dirt on it and deal with it himself. And I find that that is a very common sentiment for anyone who might be watching here today. I don't want them to think that somehow we don't want to donate, that Brian didn't want to. Brian wanted to help, but he couldn't have helped if he didn't know it. I couldn't have helped had my donor not told me about it. Do you keep, Mark, do you keep running across people who are timid about sharing their illness and timid about sharing their story? And what would you tell them?
You know, one of the things that, I mean, even for myself, it was really hard to tell my story in the beginning, and I didn't really share my story till I was actually on dialysis. You know, and then also there was fear factors of, oh my God, what's going to happen with my donor? But essentially, people want to help, they just don't know how, right? And I needed to realize that after speaking to so many donors like Brian. I would do this again if I had another kidney. Speaking to you, I would do this again if I had another kidney. And when you're so vulnerable in a situation like me being on dialysis, we don't see that part of it because we're so scared for our lives as well. But knowing that people out there are willing to help, they say the only time you look down on someone is when you're picking them up. And the gratefulness that I have for the people like you and Brian to come forward to sharing this story gave me so much hope and emphasis to share the process of donation, to share what it's like to be a recipient.
And I want this is a perfect opportunity to bring in Dr. Rastogi, who of course doesn't really want to talk. He wants this to be about others. But he is the founder and director of UCLA Core Kidney Health. He's a professor and clinical chief of nephrology at UCLA Health. And so, Dr. Rastogi, we're not going to make you go on and on and on and on. But you know, you see both sides of this. You see the patients, you see the donors. What I'm trying to get across, I guess, and if I'm not doing it, help me. I want people who are watching this trying to get information and try to understand that there's treatment, there's opportunity, there's chances, but they do need to get over, you know, the I can do this myself, because I think there's so many people that want to help, and Circle of Core is that chance to get some of the answers and to get some of the need that they have.
Yeah. So first of all, thank you so much, Philip, to introduce me. I think you know very well how we think about you, you know, and I'm still looking for that halo, you know, around Philip's head, and an angel. So I just want to say how grateful we are, Philip. You're a kidney donor, but I think it's the most priceless gift one human being can give to somebody else. There's nothing more than that. You're giving a piece of you to save somebody's life, but not just that one person, but their family and society. And I think that's sometimes we forget what one donation can do. So thank you for that, Philip. And I'll have some questions for you at the end as well. But, you know, I see both sides and we have other people coming on, but there's one thing that I do want to you mentioned about recipients, you mentioned about donors, you mentioned about the Core Kidney Program. We heard from the Bruin Beans. Our future, you know, our future of healthcare is in good hands. You know, we have an amazing group of people. But if you ask me one question, Philip, or ask me what sets apart Core Kidney from anything else, it's the Circle of Core. It's our patient advocacy and support group. And why are they so special? Because you have to keep in mind, everybody in the Circle of Core is volunteering their time. They're always available, day and night. And at that time, that one phone call from a person can make a difference in their life. So I'm extremely, extremely grateful for everybody who's here and participating for all that they've done. And our mission is that nobody's left behind, that everybody, whether it be in Los Angeles, whether it be in Georgia, whether it be somewhere in Africa, Asia. So that's our mission, Philip, and you are at the front and center of it. And I'm very, very grateful. And I want to thank you on behalf of UCLA Health for all that you have done. and keep on doing.
Well, thank you. It's wonderful to be a part of it, but I would say it's people like Brian who are making the wheel go, and people like Mark who are making the wheel go. So I just like being in this group. And that's another thing that I would say to people who are watching and they don't understand that we like being a part of this group. We want to answer questions. Any question you might have. We have donors and we have recipients who are on this panel, and we have doctors. So I hope you will reach out in the chat and ask questions, what you might face. Some of the questions, I mean, and I'm sure Brian has dealt with this before. People want to know, what was recovery like? What did I do? How did I do it? And we want to share that with you so that maybe you can relieve some of the tension or anxiety that you might have. I would like to bring in Nanette. She is a wonderful, wonderful person. Nanette Zumwalt is with us. She is a recent kidney recipient. She's been a part of this group and had a passion for advocacy for some time. How are you doing? And tell us your story, Nanette. And unmute yourself as well.
That would be very helpful. Thank you, Philip. I'm doing very great. I'm 11 weeks out post-transplant. I walked 5 miles today. I feel like my brain is cognitively working again, and gratitude is a small word to say for how I feel, not just about my donor, but about my husband and family, and all the people on this call today who helped walk through my journey with me. I knew that I had polycystic kidney disease as a child. My mother had polycystic kidney disease. My uncle received a kidney transplant when I was very young. So this was a hereditary disease that was very prominent and openly spoken about in my family. I found out as a teenager that I too had polycystic kidney disease. But, you know, as an adolescent, we're all bulletproof, right? So I didn't really pay attention to it until I was in my 30s. And my mother passed away at the age of 58, prior to being able to receive a kidney transplant. And so my journey began really in research. About 12 years ago, we found UCLA, Dr. Rastogi, and the Core Kidney Program and Research Department. And I was able, my sister and I, who both struggle from the disease, were able to join Dr. Rastogi and his team, be an early adapter to tolvaptan, and be part of this organization for a very long time. So my journey has been long. I've been an advocate for myself and had the wonderful support of my family, who has supported and pushed me to be an advocate. And that has really been my pillar of strength. When last year, 2021, I began to be listed and looking for centers to list myself as a kidney recipient. And of course, UCLA is where my heart was and where I stayed, although I did a lot of research and applied to other facilities as well, trying to, you know, broaden my reach so that I had the best opportunity to receive a kidney. And I was blessed through this process to have a family member, my son's wife's mother, if you can all track that, my son's wife's mother came over from Spain and donated her kidney. You can see a video of her. She's an amazing individual. I got my kidney transplant December 20th, and she, of course, was quarantining as I was. And December 26th, she showed up at my house with jeans and a belt on after surgery. And I said, "Oh my gosh, what are you doing?" And she said, "I feel great. This is amazing." And I was just in awe of her. And I saw her last night for dinner. She said, "Life is great. I feel wonderful. I have energy." You know, she's now in the US going to English school, and she feels very energized by this process as well. So, you know, what I want to share today, and what I said with the team earlier, is my experience, strength, and most importantly, our hope. You know, there's so much hope out there for all of us, and really looking at, if we know that our family has a genetic predisposition, being aware of that, advocating and looking to resources early on. And if it's something that's just been brought up onto us, and we're able to work with our physicians and research other resources and find what's available in our communities for us, because as Dr. Nicholas so eloquently shared, there is a lot of us in this community. None of us were volunteers other than our wonderful donors who volunteered to join us in this journey. But there's a lot of hope, and that's what I want to share today. So thank you, Phillip.
And I think, Nanette, you point out something that is very important to me to tell people, is you've got to get involved. I mean, you as the patient have to get out there and look at all your options, find all of the information you can get. And I think one of the things you also briefly touched on, and we're going to explore a lot of this, so people don't worry too much that we're brushing over these things, but avoiding the need for a transplant it is also something that, you can, if you can put that off, if you can stay healthy, if you can, through diet, nutrition, talking to your doctors, there's always something that you need to be doing as well. And Netta is a perfect example of somebody who dove in completely, knew what she was facing, and did everything that she could to find a donor, but also to, you don't want to have to go through it if you don't have to. But we're going to talk a lot about that too. But I want to bring in Mary Beth, who has been a wonderful part of this organization for a long time. Mary Beth Berry. She is a wife, a mother, a grandmother, and she has given hope to so many people. I hope she knows how to turn on her camera. And
wait a minute. How am I? Oh, wait a minute. I see it. I found it.
Yeah, see, I mean, you are sunshine on a rainy day. And Mary Beth, tell us a little bit about your story. Tell us one of the things that maybe people ask you most often, and what you find that you can share with people that help them, that give them a little bit of hope, give them a little bit of positivity when they, as Nanette mentioned, end up on a team that maybe they never wanted to be a part of.
Exactly. Thank you, Phillip. I think that for me, I mean, being part of this, it's really sad that I had to go on a kidney journey to find these amazing humans that we all can do great work together in the world. But my case was not unique. I was completely clueless. I did not know I had stage 5 kidney failure. I really attributed it to aging. I had not a clue. I knew nobody who needed a kidney. I never knew another person. And, my initially, I was told, you have stage 5 renal failure and you need to go to dialysis really soon. And I remember asking the person, how bad is this? She said, you have 10 years. And that's when I really, the level of depression that hits people that have kidney disease. We're all talking about mental health now. That's one of the greatest things to affect you, that when you're feeling that horrible, you got to pick yourself up, as everybody said, and you have to advocate. You have to be an advocate for yourself. I keep thinking, I had good blood pressure. I didn't have diabetes, but I also had never had I did not know my creatinine level. If you're listening to this podcast, if you only do one thing, go and when you get regular blood work, have your creatinine level. Be an advocate for yourself. Everybody knows what their blood pressure is. They know if they have diabetes, but they don't know that. So I had a 5-year journey, found Dr. Rastogi. I tell the story of how I found him, and I didn't even believe that there ever was a doctor like him. You have to have hope. And at some point, even though if you're on this and you're feeling terrible, you have to get into action and decide you're going to take charge of this disease, whatever path it takes, and be with really good people. And for me, the number one thing, I've been really active because really I came out of this journey and I wanted to say, anybody who is on this journey and feeling horrible, the number one thing, I wanted to find a group of people to talk to who knew what the cramps at night were in your foot, that had actually had the disease. And I'd be like, what do you do in the middle of the night when your foot is killing you? But I also was unique as far as my husband's, my son, my sister, no one matched me. We even went into the kidney exchange, which is an amazing program where you can give a kidney and get a kidney. And so I was not able to be part of that. So I really had come to accept I have kidney disease. I better make the most of these 10 years I might be having. If this is it, I have Dr. Rastogi helping me to moderate it. I didn't really believe it was going to happen. So I did something called PD, and I did it at home 7 nights a week. And just the PD that Dr. Rastogi helped me train to do at night, it was taking the poison off of your body 7 nights a week while you slept. I spun that into a positive. It felt a lot better. I'm like, hey, I'm going to sleep. And I was like on a marathon. I learned to sleep during dialysis every single night. Wake up and say, well, put that away and let's go out in the world and do something. And so I also really had a miracle. I received a deceased donation. Someone who was 29 years old, very athletic, played football in college. Now, mind you, he was 6'7" and 6'6" and 260 pounds. And as you can see here, I used to be 5 feet. I'm shrinking. And, I have been eating a lot of Girl Scout cookies. So I am maintaining the 100 pounds. And I went to Conrad Ruin, who is 29 years old. His family has taken his tragedy and made it into a foundation. And I sat in a room 1 week ago and listened to, he gave 77 body parts, 77, mind you, body parts. And, for his parents to stand up and speak, and for us to be there who have his body part. I sat down at a table with a group of people and they were all talking. They all had grown up with Conrad. And they said to me, how do you know Conrad? I said, oh, I have his kidney. I mean, the look on his face of like, just to those people at the table to say to them, if you only did one thing, learn about donation. It's so simple to check your license. I mean, why wouldn't you do that? If you could actually you can give to 77 people. It's amazing. So we joined Dr. Rastogi. I asked Dr. Rastogi, I remember saying to him, do people really say, after I had this journey with him, with everything you go through when you're a kidney person, I got my transplant, and you can only imagine I had a giant kidney. It was like 2 kidneys. It was so big. And I said to him, he's standing there, very happy that you've had this. And I looked at him and I said, do people really say thanks a lot? This is great. And I'll see you later. He goes, unfortunately, some do. And I was like, well, not this one. We are not letting this happen. Because when you talk to people, to somebody who actually had the whole experience, like Brian, like Nanette, the long journey, like Mark, a young person, each of us had a different experience. So Dr. Rastogi and Christina do such a fabulous job of putting us with the right person who usually is in the state of mind. This is my favorite state of mind. And I have kidney failure. I'm dying and I'm not doing anything because the doctor, I'm dying. It's horrible. And then you say to them, well, do you want to travel? And they said, no, you can't travel. I go, oh, I went to Hawaii. I went to Canada. I learned how there's a way. And so it really gives people hope. So if you're listening to this, World Kidney Day, as I said to my husband tonight, let's open a bottle of champagne. It's like my birthday. So, these people are remarkable. And you're thinking, oh, that's nice. You can go right to the Core Kidney website and you can say, oh, I really want to give Mark a question or Nanette or Brian. I want to ask him how his father's doing. You can go directly right to that person and it doesn't cost anything because that's how Dr. Rastogi and Christine do things.
Well, I think, Mary Beth, first off, you brought the sunshine in, as I thought. But you also brought up a great topic that takes us right to our next guest, is James Cunningham. And again, the things that CORE can give you. When you are told you have stage 5 kidney disease, when you are told you are ill and you will need a transplant, I know that when my recipient was told you need a transplant, it was shock. It was no, that can't be. But mental health, you brought up, the idea of staying optimistic. And James Cunningham is a psychotherapist and an ambassador of treating kidney patients for anxiety and what's called reactivity. We look at Mark and we know having a positive. We look at Mary Beth and Nanette. We know being positive about this is so important. But James, how can you help someone's mental health if they might not be that type of mentality? They might not be a positive person. They might not be optimistic.
Yeah. Well, Philip, thank you for having me on, and for all the other panelists as well. And I think the primary thing that people have to understand, and I think Mark, this resonates a lot with Mark, is it's a process. It's a process of education. It's a process of self-care. It's a process of growth. Excuse me, I'm so sorry. Hey, come here.
Life goes on, right?
Oh, we're gonna have James come back here in a second. I don't know what just happened. But you know what you think about? You think about it as James joins us back. When you have kidney disease, when something happens, life continues to happen.
Exactly.
Correct. Correct. I'm so sorry. I thought they were
travel. You still do all those things.
So I don't know. Mark can chime in on that, but it seems to me that structure. I always go back to this, and I have this constant dialogue with Dr. Rastogi, and he says, you always go back to structure. You always go back to self-care. You have to get up and learn, like Mary Beth just alluded to. You have to learn what works for you, and there's a collaborative resource here with this group, and little by little you put one foot in front of the other, and it happens. I don't know where they come from, the Mayo Clinic, or they come from somebody at UCLA, or you're on one list, but somehow I just think there's a higher power to all of this. So I don't know if that makes sense, but
well, James, it does. I mean, because again, if a person isn't necessarily optimistic as Mark, or as driven as Nanette to find answers, if someone just starts the methodical process of learning about the options available to them, is optimism or hope maybe kind of a default thing that happens because they start to go, oh, wait a minute, you mean there's this or there's that?
Yes, it's a lot like, Philip, it's a lot like building a house. And until you have the foundation in place, I think that's where the hope resonates. I think that's where it lives. And when they start the conversation, it's an educational process. There's a whole educational piece to it that I think people, and if they have the innate ability to want to live, they just figure it out. And I'm not, you don't necessarily have to have a PhD or an MD. Most of the people who have done it and been participants in this group come from all walks of life. Mm-hmm. So I think in that way, you're right. What you do need is at the start to get yourself imbued with some kind of hope that that it is possible. And by listening to these stories, I think it resonates with them, and they see, oh, if they did it, maybe I can do it. And they start going down that road.
Well, I will tell you that. Go ahead, Nanette.
Even with my drive, and even with my years of awareness and connection to UCLA, the depression and the anxiety were still there and got higher and more intense through the process. And, I stayed in a lot of denial, even though I was in action. I had a lot of support from my husband, my family, and as I said, this team. But to be honest, I don't think, I think it was actually when I was on the gurney in the UCLA floor, getting ready to go into surgery, and my OR nurses walked in and said, what music do you want to have playing during your surgery? I lost it. I began, it was like, I'm having a transplant. It was that moment that was so real. So we are going to face mental health issues, as Jim said, anxiety, depression, worry, concern. I even face that asking someone to give me an organ, like, am I worth it? And I know that I'm worth it, but it's still a question that comes into your brain. So as Jim said, don't let that keep you down. It is normal. You are going to experience those things, and we still have to push through anyways, because there is hope. There are people like Dr. Cunningham for support, and people like Dr. Rastogi who can amazingly lead you through this journey, and Brian and Mark who stood by me and said, get over yourself, let's get into action. And find those people, find your people.
And reach out, I think, is what
Yes.
even if you don't know where the help is going to come from, I think somehow it's a necessary antecedent feature to get the process started.
Well, you talk about speak out. We know that kidney disease is a silent killer. We know that it, many people, Mary Beth didn't even know she was ill. My recipient didn't even know he was ill. But I think the silence also comes from the patient sometimes. You really need to seek out not only people who've walked the walk, as Nanette talked about, with being able to have access to Mark or to Brian. And I emphasize two people who are chatting now and saying, hey, they've been diagnosed with this and they've been diagnosed with that. I challenge you to reach out and ask questions. Don't let silence be self-induced. Once you've given the diagnosis, it's time to talk to people. And I want to bring in Dr. Sakar and I want to bring in Dr. Shah, because while CORE has wonderful patient advocates who are out there ready to tell their story, like we've been hearing tonight, Dr. Sakar and Dr. Shah are doctors. Dr. Sakar is now the Assistant Director of Core Kidney Health. She's a clinical instructor, kidney and pancreas transplant program, UCLA Health. Dr. Shah is a nephrologist. And I will say, one of the most amazing people for me, because he was part of our transplant process some 15 or so years ago, 16 years ago. So Dr. Sakar and Dr. Shah, how important is it for the patient when they get the diagnosis to start asking the right questions, asking things that can actually help them medically? I mean, it's important to know what patients go through. I think it's important for somebody like, for the panelists to talk about their walk and, hey, I saw this and this happened to me and that happened to me. But at some point, the medical needs to come in. And when people reach out to CORE, what kind of information are people generally wanting? And Dr. Sakar, let's start with you, one of the newest members of CORE. But what do people need to understand when it comes to the medical side of their illness?
Well, Phil, thank you for that kind introduction. I'm sorry, there was an echo
running through the house.
Yes, everybody's here. Everybody's excited. So Phil, thank you so much for that very kind introduction. Hi, everybody. I am Molly. I know I go, like, the name is big. It sounds like Dr. Sakar, but I go by Molly. That's how everybody in CORE knows me. That's a very important question, because what you realize and is that when people get diagnosed, they go in this like hyper intense mode of correcting everything. Like they look back to their life and they're trying to correct as if these were their mistakes. And sometimes they are not. Sometimes it's in your genes. Sometimes it's just progressing. You find yourself at a point and you're confused. And with CORE, I think it's been wonderful. I'm the newest member. I joined because I found a platform where I found people come in, get answers, and what kind of answers. So I think we've been asked all kinds of questions. We've been asked questions about what should I eat? What should I drink? How much should I eat? How much should I drink? What is a kidney transplant, right? Where do I go? Who should I talk to? What if I don't have somebody for it? So there have been all kinds of questions. And I say, like, this is a platform where you should feel free and welcome and feel like you found friends and kind of members who have been through those journeys, who have gone to the other side, succeeding in doing and being healthier and getting all those things. But at the same time, we want to hold your hand and teach you how to walk every step there. And I'm going to invite Dr. Shah because we have a more senior member sitting next to me, and I'm going to mute myself so I don't cause echo, and he will share.
Are you guys in the same room?
Yes, we are.
Oh, wonderful.
Yes, we share the same specialty and currently the same room from where we're working. But I echo what Dr. Sarkar said. This core kidney is such a wonderful platform for patients to reach out to outside of their clinic visits, which will last for an X number of minutes or hours. And then in the interim, where do you seek information? Who do you reach out to? I mean, so many questions and very little answers. As you mentioned, Philip, we have come a long way in this field of medicine, the kidney field. But now to have core kidney and its members to be available to patients. And I always say, I love when the patient is empowered. You have Mary Beth that just spoke, Mark spoke his story, and the wonderful donors that are in the audience, you guys, and you make an immense world of difference. And now that the world has become more interactive with this social chats, etc., there's a lot of information out there, some of it good, some of it not so good. That's why I think the core kidney program has kind of boiled down all the information to the science and are easily accessible to patients.
If I could ask a question that has always been on my mind of either Dr. Shah, Dr. Rastogi, Sarkar, the medical professionals. This is what I don't know if this is something that is important for a lot of the patients out there, but it has always been very important for me. I just was confused about it. If I've been diagnosed and I need a transplant and I'm at a doctor and I'm not getting the work I think that I need, whether it's I'm not high enough on the list, I'm not, what can I do? Is there a chance that I should go to another hospital? Should I seek out another doctor? What does a patient do if they feel frustrated that things aren't happening fast enough for them? What's the right thing to do?
Philip, I can answer that to just kick it off. And I think a better person to answer that would be even Nanette and Mark. And the mission statement that we have is be your own advocate. There's nobody better than yourself or who understands. So I think you really hit it right on the top of the head that if you think you're not getting the right care, seek out other people, seek out second. I always believe in second opinions. If things don't add up, get second if you can. I know there's might be financial insurance issues, but here's where the core really comes in because you have this panel of amazing people and you are the front and center, Philip. But it's talking to people like Brian, to Mark, to Mary Beth, asking them questions about where can they seek out help. There are a lot of free resources available. And I think that's really what will set apart your care. And even if you get the same answer, I think, or you probably are on track. But if you get a different answer, that's when we need to. But being your own advocate is very important. And how do you be your own advocate? You have to educate yourself. And that's what Nanette did. Nanette's story was I have followed her for a very long time. She never took no for an answer. And I also want to bring the spouses in too. Nanette mentioned her husband, Mary Beth's husband, Brian's wife, Philip, your wife, the beautiful Maureen, Mark's significant other. So I think those are very important. Those are eyes and ears for you because patients sometimes are very vulnerable. They probably might not understand, even though they're very bright. And Nanette will speak about Rick, how Rick stood up, right? He couldn't join us today because he has something else, but he was always there when Nanette needed, and he was her advocate. So it's getting second opinions. Or if needed, you don't have to get a second opinion every single time. But your question was if you don't feel comfortable, right? But the biggest thing I would say, Philip, is if your healthcare provider says you're asking too many questions, look for somebody else. You know, you should never hear that. Now, if you keep on the same question over and over again, that's a different story. But if somebody says that you don't, so that's all that I want to say. And I would love to hear from my colleagues, but thank you for bringing that up.
Dr. Sakar, I see you're there. I mean, do you know, I mean, we all want, I think it's a fine line between advocacy for yourself and being a pest. You know, I mean, you want to listen to your doctor and ask smart questions. But, you know, how does the transplant world work when it comes to, you know, you hear some hospitals do more than others. I think she's kind of turned away. But I mean, you're ready to go. How do you help somebody when they say, I'm just getting frustrated?
So, you know, my journey, I knew I was going to eventually someday need a transplant. Like Dr. Sakar, I was one of those that questioned, what do I eat? What about exercise? How do I push this off as far as I can? But the message that I heard outside of this circle is just follow the path. You know, you need to wait until you're on dialysis. You need to wait until your GFR is this level. You need to wait. And what I want to say is, when I heard those messages, I was like, I want a preemptive transplant. You know, I want to do what I can before waiting, before getting sicker and my body, you know, decompensating further than it was, because it was decompensating. And so, you know, I didn't say that this is the general path and I have to wait. So I did look at other hospitals, other kidney transplant centers. I even brought those to Dr. Rastogi and Dr. Sakar. You know, I looked at new different research options about transplant, you know, if sibling, no medication, things. I talked to Dr. Sakar and said, what's your opinion on this? She was so gracious and gave me an hour of her time before I ever met her to educate me on that option and why it probably wasn't the best plan for me. So I think you can reach out to other resources. You can ask questions. You can speak to people who have walked the walk. But at the end of the day, you know, your medical provider or a different medical provider are going to give you the best.
I do think that's what's so wonderful about CORE.
Mm-hmm.
And Mark, you know, let's go back to when you came to the ocean. It's not about bad medical care that you might be receiving.
Right.
It's about needing someone who can answer a question medically, personally, and that's what you guys are here for. That's what Dr. Sakar, Dr. Shah, Dr. Rastogi, that's what they're here for. If you have any kind of question, if you think something's not going right, Mark, did you feel that when you showed up at the ocean that day, that this is a place that I'm going to get some answers?
Yeah, Philip, you know, one of the interesting things when I was going through my journey with looking for a donor is that I had 3 levels of my journey. And that was, I would be talking to the people who were diagnosed as I was diagnosed. When I ended up on dialysis, I started to talk to people who were on dialysis till I got to the point where I needed a kidney transplant. And then I started to talk to those people who had received a kidney transplant. So for me, my journey was, as I was going, those were the types of people that I was reaching out to. I think going to the beach and really sitting down, it all made sense. That was essentially my icing on the cake, right? Because I did have some information, but it was more in depth for me to really advocate as that patient advocate because of the journey that had perspired prior to going to the beach.
Well, I just want to, you know, we called for questions from folks, and I just want to again emphasize as we come up really close to the top of the hour that this, if we can't answer your question today, if you're not hearing what you need to hear today, reach out to CORE. The circle of CORE is filled. Everyone in the, you're not walking alone. Your experience is there's somebody connected with CORE that probably walked your path, and we want to share. We want to talk about it. We want to help you. You know, you look at Mark and you look at Annette and Maveth and myself and Brian. you're not going to see, when we walk around town, you're not going to see a kidney transplant patient. You're going to see a healthy person that you would never know is ill or did anything. That we are all recovered, we're fine. But that's why we want to talk to you. That's why we've all joined Circle of Core. That's why we're here, because you wouldn't know we have answers for you if you just saw us on the street. We don't wear a letter that says T or K. So this is a place where you can get medical questions answered. You can get personal questions answered. You can get a pat on the back or a kick in the butt, whichever you might need at that moment. But this is a resource that you should use regardless of whether you're at UCLA or another medical facility. You can reach out to this organization because there are people here who will help you. Dr. Rastogi has turned on his camera again, so I'm going to think that he has something that needs to be said with about 4 minutes to go.
Yeah. So thank you, Phillip. I was looking at some of the comments that are coming in the chat box. I do want to point out what Obi has mentioned. A young individual, a male, and the reason why I say that is because a lot of times males especially don't go for proper checkups. And I think Mark went through the same thing. I think, Mark, you found out when you were going for health insurance or changing?
A routine physical, Doc. A routine physical changed my life forever. That was 26 years old. My dad's insurance policy had ended on my 26th birthday. I was covered by the U.S. military as his son. And sure enough, that's when I was diagnosed.
And same thing with Obi. He wasn't feeling well. He just happened to be knowing me and Christina, and we sent him the ER. But I think what Obi brings up is so important. We definitely should go for kidney disease is silent. Our Brewing Beans did a fantastic job in highlighting that. So unless you check for it, you'll never find it till it's very late. And I think something happened with Mary Beth, right? She was diagnosed in stage 5. But I do want to bring up a couple of things because we're short of time. One person we haven't mentioned, as we mentioned a lot in the chat, is Christina. If she can come on. And what she does, I mean, nothing will happen.
She's the heartbeat.
Yeah. Nothing will happen without Christina. I mean, that's all that I have to say. And thank you, Christina, for all that you have done. If you want to say a couple of sentences before I have a question for Mr. Palmer himself.
I just want to say thank you to everybody. It's a privilege and honor to be a part of this group. I mean, everybody on here, I just feel so blessed every day. That's all I have to say. Thank you, everybody, and everybody that's coming on as well.
Yeah, thank you, Christina. And Mr. Palmer, you represent, the living kidney donors. You represent a lot more. You do the toy drives for kids. And thank you for having us participate in that. I think it meant a lot to me personally, but your mission of not leaving anybody behind. But I just don't know what keeps you going, Mr. Palmer. I mean, I know Mo is a part of that, but every time I speak to you, you uplift me personally, and I really mean that. You are just such a positive human being. But I have a question for you. You gave your kidney a while ago. And Dale the recipient had his own journey, which has been shared on these platforms and other. But if I may ask you a very profound question, what does kidney donation mean to you, Mr. Palmer?
In a nutshell, the one thing that I've said time and again, and I think Brian can speak to this as well, but I feel I was given far more than I ever gave. I have a very amazing experience having been able to donate, having been able to be there for a friend of mine who then watched his daughters grow up, get married, become a granddad, and now have another kidney transplant. And as a result of a journey I shared with Dr. Shaw, I got to meet all of you. I got to be a part of this wonderful group. And it has been a blessing and a gift that I was given because I was willing to help somebody. The one thing that it means to me when I look at you, when I look at Dr. Shaw, I mean, when I look at Dr. Shaw, I mean, he reminds me of what we went through because he was there at the beginning. And when you point to me, I think, you know, I gave a couple of weeks of time. You and Dr. Shaw have sacrificed a life, a career. Dr. Sakar, Dr. Cunningham. I mean, you guys have made a lifetime of helping others. I just happen to benefit from your work by giving up a couple of weeks of discomfort. And it's amazing to be in your presence and around you. And I'm sure that the people who are here watching this, for Obi, for the people who have unfortunately found kidney disease, you are not walking a path alone. You might feel alone, but you've got to give somebody an opportunity to help you, because there are a bunch of people out there who want to. I am not unique. There are 7,000 living donors every year. And there are people who check that box on their driver's license and they're willing to change a life after they've gone. And to them, our heart is filled with love for them. But you have to, for the patients who are ill, you have to let us help. You have to tell your story. You have to talk. You have to seek answers from these doctors. And I would have never learned any of this had it not been for doctors like you and for this path I've walked. So it's been an amazing experience. And again, I'm just glad to be with you guys.
Thank you for all that you do. You know, it's a gift that keeps giving, Mr. Palmer. So we are very grateful. So that's all that I have to say. I just want to thank everybody, but I want everybody else to share their thoughts too. I know there are a lot of comments coming in. One thing that I do want to say is World Kidney Day. It's something I'll be positive. I think Mr. Palmer put it beautifully. It's about hope. It's about not giving up and finding options. And people who are here to help you. And I think just to reinforce what Mr. Palmer said, you are not alone. And I think that's all that I want to say. So thank you. And thank you, everybody, for all that you have done. Thank you.
Been wonderful, and all the best to every patient out there. I know that it's a challenge, but take hope from Nanette, from Mary Beth, from Mark, from Brian, from me, if that's what it needs. See those who have been successful through your journey. As Mark said, you're in a different part of the path. They're maybe at the finish line, and you're still in the journey, but you're not in the arena alone. There are people who are in the stands watching what you're going through, but these people on this panel have been through it. They know what you're fighting, and they're here for you with the core and with Circle of Core. And so on World Kidney Day, we are praying for you. We are hoping for you, and blessings to each and every one of you that you find what you need in this journey. So Christina, I don't know if we just wrap it up, if we just say thank you. Nanette, bless you. We are so glad you're doing well. And to all of you guys who've been here, thank you very much for letting me be a part of this wonderful group.